Are sieges better now? The Siege Rework Beta has arrived, and with it a lot of good stuff and bad stuff. I just wanted to give you my thoughts on the Siege Rework so far. I just want to stress that this is just a feedback video. I'm happy CA have allowed us to access the beta, to play with and to break it, so critiques shouldn't be taken as rage or anger. They're just critiques. Siege engines disappear. What the wet is this? I'm joking, but they do. If you take your units off of siege towers or rams before a battle starts, the siege equipment just vanishes. I hope this is a bug or an oversight because it makes absolutely no sense. I use siege equipment so rarely pre-beta that there's a good chance this has always existed, and I just didn't know about it. I was very shocked to see this. It's a bad bug and hopefully it gets fixed. Units can very easily bug out when ingressing or egressing from a siege tower. This unit of swordsmen here was uncontrollable and stuck on the siege tower after trying to dismount it. Again, another pretty terrible bug which needs to be fixed. It's probably something you won't notice unless you're fighting Skaven factions with their menace belows and you need units off the siege equipment to defend your squishy ranged units, but because siege equipment disappears unless you're holding onto it in the deployment phase, then it's something that will continue to happen. Also, I noticed that these cheeky Skaven opened their own gate and then came up my own siege tower, which I was extremely surprised by.
I didn't know we could do that.
Is this tactical genius or a bug? I know for a fact that if the roles were reversed and I was defending, I'd never be able to execute a maneuver like that because pathfinding is still a massive issue. If you have broken down the gate and have siege towers docked on walls, it creates this clash where some units decide to go through the gates and some decide to climb siege towers. It's absolute chaos. What they should do is make the siege tower right-clickable. So what I mean by that is, if you want units to climb the towers or ladders, you have to right-click on the siege engine you want them to climb. Otherwise, they should default to going through the gates or a breach in the wall in order to move into a settlement. If they make the siege towers or ladders dockable for units, then surely that should fix this issue, because as it stands, it is not fun to fight with your units trying to get them to obey orders. You may want them to storm a breach in the gate, but they're busy climbing a siege tower instead. Monstrous Lords should still have Siege Attacker. I was baffled to see that Skarbrand had lost his Siege Attacker attribute. Skarbrand, the exalted greater demon of Khorne, rage incarnate, cannot batter down a gate. It's not very fitting for him. He can when you're actually in the battle, but not on the overworld campaign map. However, a Skull Cannon has kept its Siege Attacker attribute. It's all just a bit messy. I think Lords who are atop monstrous mounts should also get the Siege Attacker buff. Kulfrans on Deathclaw, Malekith on Seraphon, etc, etc. If the unit becomes a monster, it should be able to break down gates. When they're just on foot and not monstrous, they shouldn't be able to batter down gates. I think it's really that simple. Now, they should absolutely be punished for hyperaggression like this. The gates should have murder holes, boiling oil, or the option for ranged units to still attack them. It's strange that the safest place on the map in sieges is underneath the gates, where you can't get shot. This shouldn't be the case. What is also disappointing to see is basic infantry units like dogs can still attack gates. This, in my opinion, just doesn't make any sense. Infantry units shouldn't be able to attack gates. Monstrous infantry should be able to. Regular sized models should not, and this goes for cavalry too. Basically, anything with the term monster in its prefix should get the siege attacker, and should be able to attack gates. Supersized units like giants and greater demons should also get wallbreaker, and I think that should work for legendary lord monsters too. Moving on to towers, I do prefer the towers now. Not having infinite range is great, and it lets you plan an assault on the settlement. I think they should have 360-degree firing though. Towers should still provide value to the defenders when they're fighting over the walls like they did in earlier iterations of Total War games. Then, towers can also provide value for attackers if they capture them. Again, this makes them an objective for both attackers and defenders to fight over. I also think that if you've invested a lot into your towers, say you have tier 4 defences and above, the towers should get their old range back. sort of like artillery towers in Medieval 2. And it should be made clear what kind of towers the defender has on the pre-battle selection screen, so the attacker can prepare for them. There's a lot of stuff still missing. Defenders sallying out of their city to attack artillery when they have no ranged capabilities would be nice to see in the future. It's a bit immersion breaking watching enemies just run around a city getting attacked by all sorts of various ordnance, but I'm not holding my breath. Artillery positions on the walls for factions that have artillery pieces should look to be implemented, but again, it's hard to say if they will. Other really questionable design choices, like why the walls aren't entirely destructible. Why do we get these weird little phallic sections of wall standing turgid and indestructible? Why can't the whole wall just come down? There's also corners of the walls that are for some reason also indestructible. I just don't understand why they're made that way, apart from to obviously keep the wall titans in. But if these were redesigned, could it potentially free up the pathfinding issues which we see when we do try and attack the walls? Who knows? I'd love to see them try and address more of these sorts of issues as well. So overall, there's still a lot of jank, and I will probably find yet more jank as the beta progresses. But I'm still very happy that CA has at least tried to address sieges, and are actively working on it, and we're seeing some changes. This certainly isn't the silver bullet that fixes sieges and makes them fun to play, but at least it's a start. At least they're finally having a stab at this. It's hard to be optimistic regarding sieges. The pragmatic part of me thinks that sieges are just unrepairable in Warhammer 3, but there is at least a flicker of hope with the Proving Grounds beta, and I really hope that they continue with more iterations and more refinement on this. So all in all, are sieges better? Well, apart from some of the annoying bugs I've encountered, I have preferred the slower pace of the campaigns, and the extra decision making involved when opting to go for a siege. I do prefer the sieges in the Proving Grounds beta, but really that's not a high bar. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, bugs to be squashed, and things to be implemented. I'd love to see the campaign AI have a bit more balls when it came to attacking your walled settlements. The vast majority of sieges I play are offensive ones. I rarely get to play a defensive siege. The only defensive sieges I get to play are basically unwinnable when the AI has sent a full stack against a level 1 town or something of that sort of nature. It'd be nice to actually see some more epic defences of walled settlements for the player. Some of my most memorable Total War experiences have been defensive sieges, and it's such a shame that they're so infrequent in the Warhammer trilogy. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who is submitting their feedback around the beta and getting stuck in with the testing. Subreddits like r/Total War have been instrumental in voicing their opinions on this. Most of the feedback I've been seeing is constructive, and CA really does pay attention to this Reddit, so keep shitposting, boys. Anyway, that's enough from me. I've been Blake, delivering my take. Thank you all so much for watching.